Hello, English 2222. My name is Tyrell Wheeler. I'm a philosophy student here at Langara, and today I'm going to be talking about modern retellings of the Odyssey. Okay? We have to remember that this is a classical literature in translation class, but all of these works in translation were actually originally part of an oral tradition. So that's going to be really important when we're looking at Atwood's work today. But there are lots of different types of modern retellings. We've got a retelling for children. We've got a comic book retelling. We've got a feminist retelling. But I'm going to be talking about a postmodern retelling today. And that is the work, Margaret Atwood's work, the Penelopiad, the myth of Penelope and Odysseus. I think of all the different retellings out there, this one stands most in direct opposition to the Odyssey, and it really challenges it. And that's going to be my thesis, that the Penelopiad both challenges the logic and the position of Homer's telling in the canon, as it is just one of many. So background on the Penelopiad. This was published in 2002. It focuses on Penelope's story for 2/3 of the novel, but it also really focuses on the life of the maids and the injustice committed against them. So what is a modern retelling? I'm going to draw here from Laura Tosi's essay, Did They Live Happily Ever After? Rewriting Fairy Tales for a Contemporary Audience. The reason why I'm drawing upon this work is because just like the Odyssey, fairy tales are part of an oral tradition. And so as we're retelling these ancient tales, Tosi notes that modern rewritings focus on A, morally correct rewritings, B, postmodern metafictional rewritings, and C, feminist rewritings. In that space, she goes on to define postmodern retellings as ones that there are context of textual and narrative instability. There is hyperrealism and comic dismissal of the magic or romantic elements in the canonical version of the text. Also, the characters of an awareness of the conventionality of stock situations and the outcome of their expected choices may lead to the question and change the task or role they are assigned in the story. And that's something that Atwood really does, and apparently she has a history of doing. As Tosi provides an example of Atwood's Unpopular Gals, published in 1994, the excerpt provided really has a similar narrative voice as Penelope's in the Penelopiad. So we have an idea that this story is about Penelope, but let's position the text first, as Atwood does. From the beginning, she provides us two quotes from the Odyssey before anything else. So we're going to see that challenging or forcing us to challenge our assumptions. We are introduced to Penelope. Shrewd Odysseus, you are a fortunate man to have won a wife of such preemptive virtue. So we know that she is a good person, or we've been told she's a good person. On the flip side, we're introduced to Odysseus and Telemachus through the scene of the hanging of the maids. And this is something that's very important for Atwood. In her introduction, she ends with a statement, and I'm going to quote Atwood here. The story as told in the Odyssey doesn't hold water. There are too many inconsistencies. I've always been haunted by the hanging maids, and in the Penelopiad, so is Penelope herself. And it's kind of funny, we have a dead Penelope speaking directly to us in the story, But even in death, she's haunted by the dead and the memory. She's unable to escape this. So how does it begin? Now that I'm dead, I know everything. Okay? This is what I wished would happen. But like so many of my wishes, it failed to come true. I know only a few factoids that I didn't know before. So how much confidence do we have in the Odyssey itself, written by or narrated by a dead man, Homer, recorded centuries after the actual fictitious or real event, and then recorded by scribes centuries after that? So how much can we really know? And then there's an interlude with the maids, the chorus line, which I'm going to be talking about in depth in a moment. Where shall I begin? Well, the Odyssey begins in media res, and that's like something we're supposed to really privilege or be aware of. There are only two choices, at the beginning or not at the beginning. The real beginning would be the beginning of the world, after which one thing has led to another. But since there are differences of opinion about that, I'll begin with my own birth. So is that real media res of such importance? So again, Penelope's telling us about her life from the beginning to the end, and then she's also telling about us in the afterlife. And in the picture she gives us from the afterlife, I'll quote, "Once upon a time, anyone who wished to consult us would slit the throat of a sheep or cow or pig, and let the blood flow into a trench in the ground. We'd smell it and make a beeline for the site like flies to a carcass." I think self-respecting Penelope is giving us a very ironic image here and challenging, again, the scene where Odysseus goes into the afterlife. And there's lots of times where she does that. When they finally meet and Odysseus recounts his tale, we don't have a Penelope who's very confident in the tales Odysseus is spinning, right? And she lets us know. She sort of, really? I can't believe this. So, but, So, this sort of narrative voice, and in an introduction after postmodernism for 20th century literature, Andrew Hoborek argues that this is a set of devices of self-reference, ironic satire, and playing with multiple layers of reality. And that's really what the voice of Penelope has going for it in this tale. But beyond this, there's also a crucial part, and that is of the maids. And that's why Hilda Stales says it's a classical myth by means of parody and burlesque travesty. And the maids, they're like these little variety sketches that are like very funny, but also are the places where the text is just Atwood most directly challenges the Odyssey's internal logic and position in the canon. And so every single one of these sketches are different. Some are poems, some are songs. The one that I'm drawn the most to is where the maids reenact a courtroom drama, including judge, attorneys, maid playing Penelope, maids playing themselves, and Odysseus, who's silent throughout the proceeding. And I'm going to give you a quote here, and it's from the judge. He's saying, "It's written here, in this book, a book we must consult. It is the main authority on the subject, though it has pronounced unethical tendencies and contains far too much sex and violence, in my opinion." It says right here, let me see, in book 22, that the maids are raped, the suitors rape them. Nobody stopped them from doing so. Your client knew all that. He is quoted as having said that himself. So this is right after the maids have Odysseus is on trial for the execution of the suitors, and it's found out that what he did, perfectly legitimate, but the maids aren't even given their day in court. When the maids speak up, the judge says this, and sort of it descends into absolute chaos, but we get that picture of why is this such a privileged book in the canon? Where is this just an ongoing representation of like injustice, where we have the words of a dead man being written word being privileged over the actual testimony of the victims of this horrendous act? So yeah, I think Atwood did something very incredible there, and it's just so smart and so witty the way that she does it. So in conclusion, the Penelopiad, this is really Atwood asserting her place in the pantheon of great writers, right up next to Homer. She spins an incredible tale, and she uses all these different elements of genre and like this ironic voice that are cornerstones of what we expect in postmodern literature, and that's why I enjoyed it so much, and I hope I've convinced you guys to check it out too. Have a great day, and I hope to see you all virtually online in Zoom soon.